We are back, and now I think we are getting ready to go into our game number 1 between Thijs and Felkeine. And I do believe, Sottle, we have the joyous news that it is going to be a Priest mirror. So we're going to be kicking the series off once again in the same fashion we've done a lot today. I think whoever just takes the Priest mirror is going to be looking to be pretty favoured in the series overall. And it's not just because, yes, they go 1-0 up.
Yeah, no, it is a big deal when we've really been seeing people struggle to find the counter queue after they've lost the Priest mirror generally up until this point. They might feel like they have a slight favorable with Mage, they might feel like they have a slight favorable with Druid or whatever, depending on how they have their decks built. But they don't really have like that Priest crusher that they can really bring in to reverse the series after they lose the mirror. So it does seem to be very, very important. It does seem to be a pattern here in the European broadcast that the players are just leading out with the Priest mirror.
Yeah. And that, without going overly deep into it, that has to come into consideration as well, right? Because if everyone is queuing Priest first, surely someone then breaks away from that with a better idea of, okay, well, what's my good game versus Priest? If the answer's they haven't got one, then that sucks, but you know what I mean in general, right? There has to, if that's just a thing, oh, you should queue Priest first, then it almost creates just a circle, right? Where, well, then someone has to break that and try something a little bit new.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying, where like people don't really seem to have the counter queue after they lose the Priest mirror, and that's what is creating problems. That kind of affects your ability to divert from this game plan, right? If you don't really have that snipe Priest deck ready to go. Thijs does have the Demon Hunter available, which I think is another matchup that some people feel is pretty favored for the Demon Hunter, depending on build and depending on type of Priest that you're going up against as well. So that might make things a little bit different for him.
Yeah, it's just how much of an edge you can actually get. But yeah, we do just see that both players are just loving it, aren't they? The greetings at the start, very polite. Zephyrus coming down with a few more emotes as well from Thijs. I think both players are hyped for this Priest mirror here. But the wild growth coming down from Felkeine means, arguably he is just ahead in the general aspect of the game. Madame Lazul and Felkeine have a little bit of a peek at some of Thijs' hand and cherry pick what he wants here. And some interesting choices. Is this just a Soul Mirror for the fact that, as you were saying, like Soul Mirror, one of the best cards in the deck, you just want to play two?
Certainly my instinct, yeah. My knowledge of Priest mirrors is certainly still slightly rooted in the previous meta, but I can't imagine myself ever of passing opportunity for a Soul Mirror in the prior metagame, and I can't imagine it's changed that much to make that not the case here anymore. You saw it previously, right? Bunny took a third Soul Mirror over other playable Hearthstone cards.
He did then use one to kill A66 though,
yes.
So there's something to bear in mind there. But yeah, generally Soul Mirrors are just always going to find some use, even if it's going to be a while off yet. Typically, after picking a Soul Mirror, Felkeine draws another Soul Mirror, which means they're going to be sitting around his hand for quite a while. I imagine it's not normally a card you're going to use on curve in the mirror.
What is the future is clear.
Before Thijs also chooses a Soul Mirror.
Just endlessly repeating Soul Mirrors on both sides. They just continue to steal it from the opponent's hand.
Yeah, it's what happens when you point a Soul Mirror at another Soul Mirror, is it just goes on for infinity.
Yeah.
The Galakrond choice now, is Thijs, do you think, considering just going for almost a snap Galakrond with having access to it so early in the game?
I would imagine so, yeah. Especially if he sees this one come down from Felkeine, which he will expect to happen. I think he can see the board state he's made and go, okay, my opponent has Galakrond, he's just going to trade in Galakrond here. I think, potentially he's going to find one turn to fill here, and then it'll be Galakrond on the other side as well, because he can't really afford to fall too far behind. Now, having picked up that Galakrond as well, he can actually afford to dump some of these cards for pretty minimal value, just because he knows he's always going to have hand space issues moving forward.
The Alexstrasza looks pretty solid to me, even if it's not defensively, but as an offensive tool. It looked like it could have been a good play. We saw the power of Alexstrasza, or at least the potential power of Alexstrasza in the Blythe versus Bunny Hopper, if Bunny Hopper didn't steal it away from him at the most opportune time. But Thijs going for more of the on-curve tempo play. Very interesting. I think I would have played for the long game more if I was Thijs in that situation.
You want to take a card for like 20 turns from now, rather than actually just having a powerful play that puts you ahead now?
Felkeine took a Soul Mirror. That could be a card used for 20 turns from now.
Soul Mirror is a lot better than Alexstrasza, but
Okay.
I take your point.
Post Galakrond as well. Like, Krunks though, it's not off. This is fast for a Priest Mirror. It's not often we see Galakrond on curve, well, faster than curve arguably, and then the Krunks follow up. These are some back-to-back powerful turns.
Yeah, they are. Certainly, this Priest Mirror is off to the races a lot quicker than the last one was. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to end any quicker. It just means that the players have started doing powerful things quicker. But because both of them have started doing powerful things quicker, it could quite often just still grind to the same stalemate that we saw previously.
Yep. It's normally the kind of race where it gets off to a crazy start, and then they all just fall over 3 hurdles in, and then it goes more into a crawl. I did wonder there whether that was even worth just the Soul Mirror and then just pushing the extra damage. It would clear the whole board and allow Thijs to peel away this armor.
Yeah, Thijs turns it down though. I think rightly assessing that Soul Mirror is more of an emergency switch in this matchup. It does also, like, the first player to play a Soul Mirror kind of has to be prepared to, like, progress to a different stage of the game. Because, we've talked about it a lot, like the Soul Mirror Murazond, like, back and forth interaction, or like Soul Mirror into Soul Mirror into Murazond, or Soul Mirror into Murazond into Soul Mirror into Murazond, or like whatever iteration it ends up being. It does kind of, like, progress the game forward, and you kind of have to be prepared to do that, and I'm not sure Thijs' hand necessarily is right now. We can see there's only Soul Mirrors in Felkeine's hand. There's no Murazond to be able to potentially punish with a big 8-8 at the same time. But Thijs' hand is looking a little bit short.
I am having flashbacks to the Bunny Hopper versus Blythe's Mirror, though, because these are the not Netherwing boards that are filled. Very similar to the other Priest Mirror we had. It was just it was interesting to me, though, the Soul Mirror turn, or the lack of Soul Mirror, because to keep Soul Mirror, Thijs used 2 spot removal cards instead, and had to trade. So I don't think it was a straightforward given, right?
Right.
There was a lot of utility he threw away there.
No, I agree.
Not threw away, utilized.
Winds of the South, come to my aid!
So it's just going to be the old Divine Shield rush, protect the health on the other minion, and just leave the 6/6 Tiamat on board there for Felkeine. And once again, Thijs just going to have to consider how he wants to deal with this board, and he doesn't actually have a lot of ways. Maybe even going back to the fact that he used the death and the time rip means that this is either a Soul Mirror turn, which I doubt, or it's going to be a Shadow Word Pain and like hope he can find something to deal with the Tiamat. Yep. Or he could just steal Tiamat. There's always that. It doesn't have Wind Fury, but still a pretty good steal for Thijs if he goes for it. I imagine he will with that pickup.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's just too big of a tempo swing to turn down here. Like I said, there's no great panic to be using like so many resources this turn, because he is also in Galakrond form himself now, so the long-term value is not a problem here. Just needs to make sure he's not falling too far behind in tempo in the meantime.
Funnily enough, because Tiamat holds that wave of apathy, there is a chance that Felkeine can just steal it back this turn.
And it's true.
Your mind is not your own.
Okay, interesting. Reanimated dragon off the raised dead. No Zephyrus, though. That would be the big one that Felkeine certainly wanted to get back there. Potentially just the Kronks as well, as opposed to the big dragon that he summoned from it.
That's a shame as well. Felkeine didn't steal the Stalemate, and it will get effectively a free trade onto the 2/6. Can't be dealt with Ruin after that. But still, it's just going to peel away at least one of these taunts.
Yeah. I think Felkeine just has to go ahead and play 2 cards this turn. Yeah, no way to really milk the hero power value. Just has to create some hand space for the turns coming forward. Again, Disciplinary and Gandling coming into play, which, you know, you tend to get excited about when you're playing, like, Rogue, for example, when you get this off Dragon's Horde. Some people have even been playing it in Zoo. When you get it in Priest, it's more of a downside than it is a benefit.
I'm trying to just see if Thijs gains any real value from a Soul Mirror this turn. He does gain 3 minions, it's just how much he actually deals with on Felkeine's side of the board, because if he's paying 7 mana to just generate 3 minions and pass, that probably doesn't cut it.
Right. Yeah, and those are generally the Soul Mirrors that you should be looking for. It's like when you can go like Soul Mirror, Breath of the Infinite, for example.
Right, correct, yeah.
You like get some value trades and it clears up, or when you're gonna like Soul Mirror, popping open a card which has a huge minion inside it, but then you get to death their huge minion at the end of the turn and you still have yours, for example. Like that kind of stuff. Creating more than just a board clear with the Soul Mirror, creating actual like swing turns with it, generally pretty crucial in the matchup.
Oh! Those are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not for right now, but having that Deathwing available is pretty nice for one of those tempo swings you kind of mentioned, right? Just not with a Soul Mirror particularly, but just being able to play 1 minion, clear something that Thijs has up, maybe a small board, and leave something behind. Pretty solid minion, honestly.
It is. How long exactly you can afford to hold on to a 1-mana dragon in your hand, though, is a matter of debate. Thijs actually lent towards the Mindrender here, which I think is potentially sketchy because he's handing Murazond over to his opponent here.
And also, we're going to see that Deathwing ain't going to be so cool, is it? Because that actually hurts Thijs.
Yeah, and I think you
could
see
trade
the
a lot of it
reaction
away
there.
and then Deathwing, but
You see the reaction from Thijs is this is not really the hand he wanted to be looking at. You know, potentially that was a 1-cost dragon that he could just jam out here and feel great about it. Potentially that reanimated dragon was a Zephyrus or that he could throw out here as well, potentially, right? Because he knows that that's a raised M movement. Lazul's kind of weird because you'd play Lazul and be stealing a card from your hand to put into your opponent's.
Not if you could play it as well, but yeah, that's true. You know at this point it's not going to be very playable.
Yeah.
And look at the difference as well, though, right? Where there was a chance that, again, probably the last time I'll talk about it, but the pre-nerf Mindrender would have gave Thijs some more options with that Deathwing as well, with, say, a Soul Mirror.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel like Felkeine's come out ahead in this exchange.
Yeah, like even just Murazond straight up pass looks pretty okay, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What if?
Might want to play the Holy Ripple just to not let Thijs have a card.
Yeah.
You think this is your time? It is mine.
There goes the Soul Mirror. He's going to get his additional Mindrender off this as well. There we go. Drop that Holy Ripple at the end of the turn, just for maximum value, healing up his minions. Yep, that looks about right. And yeah, as I said, I feel like Felkeine has come ahead significantly in that exchange between the Mindrender.
Thijs can now also play Soul Mirror.
Yes.
If he really wants to.
Yeah. What did I say about how, like, when the first Soul Mirror gets played, it kind of just triggers it, setting off back and forth for the entire game? that's the problem, right? Is that like Thijs used one of his big like trump cards with the Mindrender, and he got a Soul Mirror out of it, but his opponent got a Murozond out of it. And Murozond beats Soul Mirror. In a game of rock, paper, scissors, Soul Mirror, Murozond, Murozond beats Soul Mirror.
Time is running out.
Yeah, and it is going to be Soul Mirror, but I don't think it's because it's a particularly good play. I think it's because all the other options Thijs had were terrible.
Yep.
And he kind of could have foreseen this outcome as well, right?
From which point?
I don't even know. I'm lost. Probably post Mindrender, right?
Yeah. So once he plays the Mindrender, he can certainly like resolve that out. To, okay, I play Soul Mirror, my opponent plays Murozond. Unless I top deck something nutty, I'm then just going to have to respond with Soul Mirror, or I'm kind of dead. But yeah, like rewind one step earlier than that. Like, was the Mindrender bad, sight unseen? No, I don't think so. You know, one cost Dragon in hand, a few other cards that have been hoarded, and something that could be reasonably identified as a Zephyrus, as I was like describing with the Raised Dead. I think the timing was probably okay. But yeah, what he did with it after that point is maybe more questionable.
Time is running out.
And here, although I was initially looking at Deathwing and Reanimated Dragon, again, Felkeine will just know that there's some removal tools available, so I do actually think I like this, and Felkeine just trying to go under those removal tools, or try and make Thijs commit some removal to some minions that really just don't matter that much.
Right. Dude, so many Mindrenders have died on either side now.
Yeah.
Any generated Raised Deads are going to be chaos, even after this one's gone down. Okay. Dodged one.
Dance, puppet, dance.
Thijs should be careful here. Nothing should be positioned to the right-hand side of that Armet. Yes, fantastic. Excellent. Good work. For Soul Mirror implications.
Mm-hmm. I do wonder if at this point, Felkeine could just be okay to press the Plague.
What if?
Because he could continue like fighting for this nothing board, or he could just reset and knowing that Thijs doesn't have that many cards in hand, say, are you actually going to be able to rebuild a significant board this turn? There's also this option, and you know what? The more I look at it, the Deathwing seems pretty solid, because you don't actually care how much damage it takes, because you know it's just dead whenever anyway, a lot of the time, right? Because he knows Thijs has Ruin, so it's like, sure, let the Deathwing soak 1,000,000 damage. You're not trying to get like a 12-10 Deathwing to stick. It really is just, yeah, you know, just don't let it get Breath of the Infinite or Penanced, and it's looking pretty happy.
Yeah, I paused. I was trying to be nice to you, Raven. It's been a long day already. I was trying not to be too hard. But I was going to like Plague of Death when you can just like swing the board this much with your 1-mana
Sure.
Deathwing would have amazed me.
What if?
Yeah, honestly, the reason is the hard bit is when to play the Deathwing when you know your opponent can just remove it, right? And that's maybe something that players either get too locked into or not locked into enough. When the weird Mindrender turns happen and you gain like knowledge of the half of the hand at this point, it does get a little bit tricky. But yeah, I do like this a lot.
Yeah, I think if you already pick up value of killing 4 pretty solid minions with your Deathwing, like before it bites the dust,
Right.
you're perfectly happy. For Thijs to remove it at that point.
And look at this here for Thijs as well. The response was not great, was it? It couldn't clear the board. The minions on board aren't really threatening in any way. He could just Cabal the 2/5 now and just still be super ahead and only have to use 1 card. Is this the point where the simple plays are the best plays here?
For the most part, yes, I would agree. I think the only thing Felkeine has to be careful about here is that he has missed a lot of... He has missed a lot of long-term value in this game, just in terms of like missed hero powers and things like that, because he's been so 10-carded the entire game. That I'd really like to try and find a turn to just, for example, play like Wave of Apathy and a Holy Smite and something else, just like make some damn space in my hand so I can actually start generating value again for the long term.
And Wave of Apathy, I do think, is the reason where we didn't see Cabal Shadow Priest that turn, because of, you know, obviously the combo of just steal whatever you want in the game. I do think it's powerful. I did just wonder if just build the board again, which Felkeine has done, just in a slightly different way. And now this Galakrond, this Kronk's in hand means that, you know, you have to start just looking at onboard damage every single turn here for Felkeine. I'm not saying he's going to be able to 30 Thijs from the board, of course, but it will start to add up, or at least be a potential threat.
Oh no. It's back, Raven.
Yeah. Thijs does have Wave of Apathy here, even though the Apotheosis, of course, did not really go his way. He can just reduce all these down to 1.
Yeah.
Which I think was the backup plan all along. Galakrond now is on 2, I believe.
Yes, he is already Galakrond, though.
I just mean for sniping multiple minions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could do the wave steal turn now.
Yeah, the alternative is just a Soul Mirror to clean up. You get a couple of low value trades for small minions that you get yourself, which you are then threatening a pretty obnoxious board with Kronks yourself then. If you just Soul Mirror cleaned up and had the 2 extra 1/2s that you got from the value trades, your Kronks on the follow-up, if it's not cleared, is potentially very, very threatening.
How scared do you think Felkeine is of a Plague of Death here? Thijs doesn't actually run 1 core, so I was looking at whether he just steals the 1/8 and then maybe, well, he could Karj the 1/8 and then steal it. Yeah, I like this. Make a huge board, so you have to have generated a Plague, and if not, what is the way Thijs actually deals with this?
Yeah, I think there is 0 cards in Thijs' hand that could even be Plague of Death this turn. From Felkeine's perspective, there's 4 cards from Thijs' deck that cannot be Plague of Death, as you described. He doesn't run it. 2 Thought Stolen cards when Felkeine has his Plague of Death in his hand already, so the Thought Steal cards can't be Plague of Death. And then the other one is the Galakrond that Thijs has had the entire time, which I think is from, an early game 3/2 steal, right? Or is that his natural one?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure which one he played, but yes, that happened. So,
Okay.
Yeah. I do like the play, though. The setup from Felkeine was good.
Yeah,
that could
I like it too.
Won the game, honestly.
That's the problem, though.
Ouch.
He said they couldn't be Plague of Death. Those Thought Steal cards that I was talking about can be Shadow Madness.
The progressive, facial expressions from Felkeine. Of, first, the Karj gets stolen, he's like, ooh! And now the Moronzan's stolen, he's like, ooh! It's getting worse. But Felkeine does play a Plague, so if he so chooses, he can just say a hard no to this board. It's going to be upsetting, though, because he does still have a lot of power on this end of it.
He does, yeah. Really not a great feeling, Plague of Death. But actually, weirdly enough, the way that Shadow Madness and Cabal Acolyte just work naturally have positionally played around Soul Mirror as well.
Yeah.
Just by accident. So now he has to trade first and then Soul Mirror away, and that loses him value because that was a minion that he could have traded and kept himself on the other side as well.
I do like, though, the no-play here for Felkeine, because the minions he has, like this Spellkin and the Cabal, are just too good to just throw away.
Yeah.
But Thijs getting hold of some power plays himself now. He's just the most expensive Hearthstone hand ever seen, actually, dust-wise.
You are too late. His return is nigh.
Heal 5 looks fantastic here.
No! Become the hero this world needs.
But again, we've reached this point where the Priest Mirror is kind of resolved down to where neither player really seems to be threatening lethal in the near future. But Thijs finds himself in the Bly's position where he's 2 cards ahead in fatigue, so he needs to be the one to potentially be setting something up and pressuring him.
But Thijs does have Mindrender, an additional Galakrond, and Zephyrus, whereas Felkeine does not have access to those things.
Very
At
true.
the moment, although that could potentially change, of course. Oh, okay. Galakrond push? Because with Zephyrus, you're looking at potential Bloodlust, Wind Fury buffs, whatever. So I'll Blessing. Oh no! What's the double your attack card called?
Bless Champion.
That's it. Bless Champion. And so yeah, with that, I like this play a lot. Just push.
Yeah, I think this is good recognition. Like, just as I was saying it, like, Thijs needs to recognize he's in the tempo position here, and he needs to end the game. Like, yeah, he made the big tempo push with the Galakrond. This High Abyss Allura is kind of a problem, because much like the Cleric of Scales, it does actually consume a spell from your deck if Spellburst ever goes off, which is, again, a problem when it comes to fatigue situations. So that's something that could potentially get Thijs into trouble here and even further accentuate his fatigue position. So, yeah, I think Thijs is well and truly locked into just trying to play big minions and hit the face in.
Also a chance as well, he could be looking at this Zephyrus to potentially get a Natalie Celine to bust through a big taunt, because he probably won't be looking for Tyrion, knowing that Felkaine's just ever so likely to have that plague.
Yes.
And I think having Zephyrus into Tyrion would be a huge throwaway, as opposed to, Natalie Celine is active card, can open up some damage to face, or of course there's options for fireballs and so on and all that good stuff, but just generally for like big minions one after another, I think Thijs might be looking for that from Zephyrus.
I think this is very, very deliberately done from Felkeine, where he's just leaving the High Abyss Allura up turn after turn after turn, like almost poking Thijs like, hey, you sure you wanted to play that? I'm not so sure you wanted to play that. However, not accounting for the Mindrender that Thijs has, Thijs can use that High Abyss potentially to swap decks with his opponent and then pull a spell out of his opponent's deck by casting a spell from their hand and activating the spell burst.
Definitely a funky plan, but I would suggest that Thijs play the Zephyrus before that happens.
Yes.
As then you will just give Felkeine a Zephyrus to play for himself instead.
Yeah.
Looks like he might have to pull the trigger on this spell.
It might
What
even be
the
at the
spells
point.
left?
I mean, yeah, that's exactly my question too. Unfortunately, I have Thijs on the upper side of my spectator, which makes it much harder for me to ascertain remaining cards. Normally, you can reverse engineer it just by looking at which cards he's drawn and played in the tracker, but this is a Priest Mirror, so that's impossible.
Nice try. The Psycho Pimp getting the Katrina Muerta is huge.
I'm sorry,
that's
what?
gonna. Huh?
Don't worry. Carry on.
Care to dance with death?
Oh. Felkeine, you might have to just press play again. This might be a bit too much.
You may indeed, yeah. So what actually happened here? I'm just trying to check up on whether the Abyss actually cast anything. I'm not sure it did, right? Or did it cast the Holy Nova? It cast the Holy Nova.
It cast the Holy Nova, yeah. Whoa. Okay, post-plague Tyrion removes the problem I was talking about earlier.
Yep, very nice.
Put your faith in the
This
light.
does mean he can just Morozond.
Oh!
Oh! Wait,
Yes,
you can definitely
yes,
get
indeed. He can definitely get it, yes. Holy Smite, Wave of Apathy. Breath of the Infinite, Wave of Apathy. Pick your poison.
it. What if he doesn't steal it though, right? This turn, he steals it next turn. He should Morozond this turn
Why?
because he gets his own Tyrion.
Mm-hmm.
Thijs' Tyrion attacks but doesn't die because of the Divine Shield. So then he can, get a swing or whatever off his Ashbringer and then steal Thijs'. Is that better?
I see where your head's at. In the world where your opponent doesn't have any Hearthstone cards that might punish you for that, yes, that is just outright better. Is there things that Priest could have generated that punish you for that? Yes. So
yes.
that makes it kind of scary.
Dance, puppet, dance.
But now there's the cards for Thijs.
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
I don't know. Again, not entirely sure what the origin of every single card in Thijs' hand is right now, but I don't know, Grave Rune, Wretched Reclaimer as two of the generated minions in his hand, and suddenly he has 15 Tyrions. Bad things can happen.
Your mind is not yours.
Bad order. No, good order? Bad order? Fine order. Okay. Now 50.
Thijs
Now
definitely got it.
50-50.
He definitely got it.
50-50
That
on
was a
the Tyrion.
celebration, I think.
Oh no!
Is there a 4-1 Twilight Drake and a 1-9 Twilight Drake on the board? Just add those things together. Make it
Yeah.
one solid minion.
Twilight Drake has had a bit of an identity crisis here. It doesn't really know what it is anymore.
What if?
So wait, so Morozond now casts Morozond Penance on the other side, which doesn't really look good enough.
It is more 8/8s though.
It is, but you're leaving too many 8/8s up on the opponent's side of the board for my liking when you're at 18. When you have every advantage in the matchup, apart from the fact that getting hit in the face by something really big might end the game, you should probably prevent that really big thing hitting you in the face.
Time is running out.
Oh, nice clear actually here. Oh, not a clear, but close enough.
Yeah.
A little boot from the material.
Yeah, and it is a clear if he wants it to be, which I think he should.
And
he is 100% the control in this situation.
Although this... Wait, was that an ordering? It wasn't, right? It was fine. Yeah.
Seemed fine to me. I don't know what potential thing you're seeing, but it seemed okay to me.
Yeah, so what I was looking at initially was if there was ever the boot with the Tyrion onto the 8/8 first.
Yeah.
So then it doesn't die, but he doesn't get the swing of the weapon if so, and I think he had to clear the taunt anyway, right?
Right, okay.
And honestly, even if it was a complete open choice, he might have just wanted this Tyrion to die, so he gets the weapon.
I'm gonna win big.
Oh, Mass Resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
Looks good to me. There's been a lot of mess been played in this game, but there's been some really good cards as well. And most importantly, it's one card Thijs can play, build a board.
Oh my goodness. What, seriously, can we just stop now? Can we just stop?
No. It's the answer, Saul. No, we cannot. See, I told you. No.
Hold me.
Wait. Okay, Felkeine, please. Mindrender.
Wings of destruction. They
Ooh.
come.
Oh, we can still do it.
Has to draw a card here just to find an answer to the board state, but can afford to. Still comfortable in fatigue position.
And kill this card as well and get the present once the death rattle procs.
Yeah. That's why he had to go fishing. Needed to find an answer to this board state. He's under too much pressure if he wasn't.
And that's it for Thijs. The deck has been drawn. Ooh! Maybe just in time, he can Headmaster Kel'Thuzad into the Shadowword Ruin to get 2 Kronks on his side.
Right.
It's his whole turn, and it leaves minions on Felkaine's side, but...
It's about the biggest tempo swing he was ever going to get.
Yep.
Now Murozond will just straight up clear most of this up. It will also clear itself up. But it does solve the problem, in the immediacy at least. Otherwise, Felkeine can just straight up Shadowword Ruin, which probably makes more sense, and hold on to the Murozond for something further down the line.
Could he ever go Crimson and then Death instead?
Yeah, I mean,
Just to get this Sethic going?
So let me explain why my instinct is like partially Murozond here. It's because if he doesn't play this Murozond in a spot where Thijs has played a reactive spell, so his Murozond like also clears, I'm not sure if he ever gets to play it this game from this point.
Alexstrasza that he's yet to see?
Right, but he's at 17.
Yeah, I guess.
If Thijs just plays Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and another big dragon, he can't Murozond in response to that.
He has Death in hand.
Sure, that's fair. That is fair. That's a good point.
It's tough though, don't get me wrong. I'm just throwing ideas around because, as always is the case with these priest mirrors, you feel like one tiny misstep will just, in the long run, ruin the game. The full butterfly effect will go on, right?
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
I'm running out of cards.
So this is actually perfect for Felkeine here. He just gets to Death and Murozond for his own mass res, which is pretty great.
Well,
Rave Rune is exciting instead. Okay, probably good enough to divert, sure.
Okay.
Nice. Really good cleanup. And Thijs is bleeding out.
He really played. Oh, okay. I wonder what he's expecting Felkeine to have in hand that isn't better than him giving Felkeine a Dragon Queen Alexstrasza to play.
Yeah.
By blood, be born again.
Uh-huh. Thijs, you dead, friend.
These are all terrible as well, right? Because they're unplayables, which means it's just making Felkaine's hand better.
Yeah. The look on Felkaine's face right now is pretty much mirrored in where I'm at the moment. He's just waiting, like, he doesn't... I don't think he believes there's anything that Thijs can possibly do to hurt him here, but he's just kind of waiting to see if he's wrong. Narrator voice. He's not wrong.
Life and hope are worth fighting for.
Well, it's a good card with fatigue. Good synergy.
Yeah.
Most importantly, there just isn't too much to do here because now I would imagine Felkaine's going to play the Zeraku. There we go. And then only give him the Dragon Maw, where if Thijs goes for this other Mindrender. Oh, wait, no, they're going to switch. Oh, wait, no, that's fine. Oh, Mindrender, you're breaking me.
Alright, put an estimate on it, Raven. At what point during this season's GM do you think you'll understand how multiple mind renders work?
No, it's not understand. It's not. No, I know how it works. It's keeping track of it that is ruining me. I 100% know how it works. It's just who's mind rendered who when we're seeing 8 in one game. That's what I'm trying to keep up with. I definitely know how the mechanics works. Don't get me in trouble. That's all.
I am out of cards.
Well, That just looks like game to me.
It sure does. It was a long and grindy one, but I think it's a similar story, really, to things that we've seen previously, where a failed Mindrender can have long-lasting implications, because generally, if you commit to that line, what you do in the long term is put yourself behind in the fatigue race, because you sort of, you push aggressively, then you use Mindrender with kind of a bad hand, but because you pushed aggressively, you end up then behind in the value race and the fatigue race. And we've seen that happen on a couple of occasions now, and it seems really, really hard to recover. I had high hopes when the first Priest Mirror of the season we saw was RDU just killing people with 8 to 10 cards left remaining in the deck. But since then, things have ground back to the resounding halt that they seemed to be on the previous season. Except now with additional layers of everyone getting to play with each other's hands and deck all of the time, which just makes Raven very, very happy indeed. But yeah, here we are, third Priest Mirror down of the day. But Thijs is the one to lose out on his Priest, which I think puts him in a massively disadvantageous position in the series.
It really does, and we might have, we might see the time now where Felkeine can maybe make himself feel a little bit better about his first series, or at least how his first series of the day ended, and maybe take a win here and move on throughout this bracket. But for now, we are going to go to a quick break while we get ready for game number 2. I'm sure you guys need it, and I'm sure the players need it after that one. We'll be right back.
Blythe shows us he truly is the chosen one when he dodges the 7 bombs in his deck turn after turn to sail through to the finals. He's beginning to believe.
7 out of 13 times he wins, 6 out of 13 times he loses. It's that simple at this point. I do not believe it, right? I actually don't believe it. No one can stop this man. You are looking at your 2020 world champion. There is no other way around it.
He just does it. That's all there is to say. Blythe, and you see how animated and how much it means just to win this game, win this series, and to move on to the finals in his first week of Grandmasters.
It was an incredible start to Grandmasters for Bank Yugi, coming out of nowhere and taking down some of the best players in APAC to be crowned the Week 1 Asia Pacific champion, with a very unique lineup to boot. One perfect showcase of his off-meta but powerful decks is this play with Galakrond Rogue, demonstrating the insane synergy between Lawkeeper Polkelt and Wondrous Wand. Because he can play a 1-cost guy, then play the wand, right? So he'll draw all 3 of Galakrond, Kronks, and Flick, guaranteed.
Okay. Sure. And then the fireworks go off.
Yeah, Tyler's sensing that something bad is about to happen here.
First you make room for Flick.
Yeah.
And then you play then you play the Flick, then the Galakrond. This is easily the best thing I've seen out of this expansion just yet.
Who'd have thought that bloomin' old school Galakrond Rogue would end up being the absolute powerhouse like this?
Oh my goodness. With the board and hand space limitations, I don't think Bank Yugi could have gotten an immediate lethal there, but this may as well be lethal. Look at that board!
Mindrender Ilucia is one of the funnest new cards in Scholarman's Academy, for the person playing it. Not so much fun, however, for No Hands Gamer, who gets his own claws stolen in order to deliver a very priesty lethal at the hands of Language Hacker.
He finally gets his claws.
Oh! Alright.
Nice.
That's awesome. And I think Language Hacker sees that.
Attack, Breath of the Infinite, Mindrender, play 3 claws, he's dead. No Hits Gamer knows. I mean, he had to have the removal to get through that, but I mean, a priest dealing 2 damage, like it could have been Holy Nova, it could have been Breath of the Infinite, a lot of things that could have happened.
Oh my gosh. That is awesome.
Wow. That was cool.
Priest doing priest things. Language Hacker is going to take the series 3-2 and advance to play Bloody Face for a top 4 spot on Championship Sunday.
In one of the best macro game plans I've seen in a long time, Bank Yugi picks up Malagos's Fireball on turn 6. Despite having multiple good opportunities to use it as removal, he saves it all the way until he's in Fatigue, before comboing it with Zephyrus for a beautiful lethal.
Right, Squall Hunter, Fireball, Zephyrus. He has 3 mana remaining. Lava Burst.
That's it.
That lay on hands was nuts!
We were forgetting about the key extra bit of burst damage along the way from Bank Yugi in the Zephyrus, but what a way to close things out. It looked like Chonsu had just gained way too much health to have any chance. Who else but the Muzz could counterspell a 10-mana spell, then use his own 10-mana spell to hit lethal later that very game? What a way to be crowned Week 1 America's champion.
Keep around a 4-4.
Oh, no!
Oh, round of applause.
Muzzy
Language
is-
clapper, giving it up for Muzzy here, and Muzzy gets a free turn. He essentially skipped his opponent's turn.
What?
Oh,
Nope. And he's dead. That's it.
what a game. What a series. What a weekend. Muzzy is going to take home the first week of Swiss with a championship under his belt.
Oh, we are back, it seems. Which I did not realize we were just coming back, but we are ready to go with Thijs versus Felkeine in our game number 2 here. That was a long drawn out priest mirror, as seems to be the case today and going forward. But it does mean that Thijs doesn't have no longer access to that priest. Felkeine is going to be playing it once again, last hero standing, and Thijs has to pick his demon hunter or his druid to go in for.
Indeed, and this is the situation that people have found themselves stuck into. This has kind of been the story today, and I kind of feel like a broken record at this point because the series are kind of panning out to a T in this regard, where it's priest mirror, and then the loser just doesn't really have the lineup to beat it. Although Thijs does have access to maybe a couple of better decks than the average that we've seen so far. His druid is Mali Druid, which most people would say increases percentage over a survival druid or a menagerie druid in that matchup. And then he does have the demon hunter, where a lot of people don't as well, which I think is a much more winnable matchup than some of the decks that other people have had to run into priest eventually. So Thijs probably isn't in as bad a position as some of the other players have found themselves in this spot. Because of the way that he's constructed his lineup overall. But again, like we talked about how his lineup's kind of gone through this weird iteration, right? Where it's not designed for this. It's designed for a series that has Bomb Warrior in it, and he's kind of having to adapt on the fly.
Yeah, one thing I am looking forward to seeing again as more and more people, or at least people play more and more games of Mali Druid and builds similar to this with this, Malygos, Geppetto package and so on, is how they are actually consistently winning games of Hearthstone. And that is not, I don't mean that in a negative way, but even in the interview we saw not too long ago with TJ and RDU, he was saying, you in a lot of matchups, you can just use swipes and moonfires to, as anti-aggro tools or tempo tools and so on. And then I would just like to know the numbers on when does Malygos plus X actually, or how often does it actually win you games? Because if it's not that often, then is the deck built wrong? Is my question, right? Like, do you need the Malygos, and can you just play other tools? And I'm not saying it is built wrong or it's built right. It's just if so many players aren't using it to actually win games, would there be something better to include?
So, it's no secret, I'm not a fan of the Mali build of Druid. I don't like it. I think it's in a solid third place overall in my standings of the builds of Druid that you could bring to this tournament. But, just to defend the bastions of logic here, just because you don't necessarily play Mali and swipe them in the face and the game ends, doesn't mean that playing Mali Druid didn't win you the game. Because, for example, you could Mali Bogbeam Moonfire something in the mid game, and that tempo swing led the game to a point where you'd end up winning, right? Which might not, in your question, go down as Mali directly winning the game, but the fact you are playing Mali Druid at that point has won you that game because you have access to that big remove and swing turn. So there certainly are benefits to having the Mali build in your deck that exist outside of just straight up swiping your opponent in the face and killing them with the full Omu combo. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't like this build of the deck. Not for me.
Yeah. I just wonder if you want good tempo or removal tools, there are other cards that Druid does have access to, but we'll see if the meta does develop to make Malygos more of a mainstay, or if it does fade away a little bit. But Felkeine so far now, on that Priest, of course, does have his Zephyrus on demand, and we've seen this a lot today, I think, where we're just seeing Zephyrus Wild Growth is just clearly the turn 2 play in Highlander Priest, right?
It's been kind of absurd, like, A, how many opening hand Zephyrus we've seen, B, how many Priest Mirrors we've seen, and C, how many of those Priest opening hands and Priest Mirrors have ended up with them going Zephyrus into Wild Growth. It is something that I was not really prepared to be watching.
Look at the stats from what we've seen so far. Mali Druid is slightly up versus Priest at a 14 and 13 score, whereas the other Druids are at 22 and 40. So definitely Mali Druid, who seems to be doing at least, I'm not even going to say good against Priest because it's such a small sample size, but it's not getting dumpstered by Priest, I guess, is the important takeaway there.
Yeah, it's an enormous improvement between the two samples as well, right? Like above 50% to 22 and 40. Like that's a pretty stark difference, even in a sample size like that is still relatively small.
I say getting the Guardian Animals off does mean that even though Felkeine has had access to some ramp of his own, Thijs is ahead on board now, and it's suddenly the questions of... We talked a lot, actually, so maybe because we've been hitting the other matchups over the past week or so, of how certain decks deal with this early Druid Guardian Animals, but how does Highlander Priest, is it something it can deal with easily, or does it struggle more than, say, Mage, for example?
I would say it does struggle on average a bit more than Mage would, if that's the comparison that you want to make. The blessing here for Felkeine is that he is just ahead on mana, right? Like, the scary thing is that this turn would happen and the Druid was the one that ramped, and then, you know, even if you were able to just scrap together a couple of removal spells over 1 or 2 turns, they're just continuing to hit you with big bombs from that point. But actually, Felkeine can kind of just afford to pick this board apart over 1 or 2 turns, because actually Thijs isn't really threatening long-term pressure here over a number of turns, because he hasn't hit the overgrowth, he hasn't hit the permanent ramp.
Looking at these options now, there are a few decent ones. Innovate does unlock his overflow next turn.
What if?
The only thing I think Thijs was considering was whether there's some kind of Omu Moonfire speaker play next turn as well, just to put as much on board as possible and sort of try and play aggro with this hand that he's got. So Omu suddenly does just become a free Yeti, and then he does have follow-up with that Ghidra.
It's like a pretty easy coin Galakrond for Felkeine, though. Like I said, he is just in the process of picking this big push apart from Thijs' side. Thijs has follow-up here with the overflow, but it's not really extra pressure being generated immediately.
No, but card draw is definitely what you want, especially in this version of Druid here. If Thijs can get hold of the Geppetto, then that's the the card that can make or break a game with this build. And the problem is, it's not as straightforward in some Geppetto lists of old, where you only played Geppetto and then the key combo minions. There are, of course, the Guardian Animals minions still in the deck, so there's a lot higher whiff chance than there is in historic versions of this. But it still is just a very strong play, whichever way you look at it. So I do just like this overflow digging a little bit here.
That turn was so weird. The turn was so weird. Okay, so yeah, like Thijs chose to play his overflow for 6 and then burn a card. The other option was to innovate first and then overflow for 7, but you then technically waste a mana, right? Because you lose the Nature Studies discount by going innovate first. It was a very weird turn. I think you saw Thijs going back and forwards to picking up the overflow, picking up the innovate. It was really unusual, but like I'm not entirely sure what he necessarily want to spend that last mana on. But I don't necessarily think it's about that either, because if, look at it the other way, right? He innovates, he overflows, he draws 5 cards, and then his hand completely fills up anyway. Doesn't he then end up still burning a card at the end of the turn?
Yes, but he doesn't burn a mana. That's probably my point or query, is using the...
He does, though.
Oh, so sorry. Okay. He burns a mana he could have used the turn after, right? And I guess that's the
Right.
difference. He could have done it I don't know. He ended up playing the Innovate and burning out anyway and floating 1 mana. So, I don't know. That was just a weird turn, wasn't it? I'm still trying to think about the ways it could have gone, and there's a lot of options there. It's very strange.
Yeah. But this is the thing, like, but if he does it the other way around, he just ends the turn with 10 cards in his hand anyway, right? Because he's not actually at 7 mana, so it's not like he can draw Bog Beam or something and then dump that
Correct.
from his hand because he's not at 7. So I think it's like, it looks silly the way he ended up doing it, but if he'd have done it the other way around, I think that would have looked silly as well, and people would be saying, oh, you should have done it the other way around. It's just, whichever way you played that turn, I think it ends up looking silly.
And I guess the Malygos in hand, along with the Omu, was the reason he didn't just want to throw away a Moonfire on a play like that. Because he could have opened up the space with Moonfire very easily.
Yeah, he didn't have the Mali to begin with, but yeah, he could have gone Moonfire. But again, that's the same problem. If he Moonfires first, he then has to innovate the Overflow because he's used up the Nature Studies discount.
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I do quite like the Omu here, just because it's a lot of the time just a free body on board for Priest, which seems pretty good against Druid. Like, just put more threats on, because it's not really what Priest excels at, so why not take a freebie?
Yeah. Anyway, in the meantime, the upshot of that turn that we were kind of debating is that the Geppetto is burned. And the Geppetto being burned is actually kind of impactful in the matchup, because the Druid playing Geppetto and then ending turn with those 1 mana minions in the hand is a like guaranteed trigger point for the Priest to then go Mindrender, right? Because you get to throw away so much value from your opponent's hand because you know they have 1 mana minions in there a lot of the time. So the fact that that trigger point will never actually happen now weirdly makes Felkeine's game plan a little bit harder, because he's going to have to like employ a little bit more guesswork on when good Mindrender timing is.
Yeah, and I guess like the best outcome would have been Thijs to get X Beast and then Alex, and just Alex face instantly, to just take that game.
Sure.
But so far, Felkeine, with the help of the Zephyrus, is just running away with the board here. It's absolutely insane amount of board control, and Thijs doesn't have a reduced Malygos, which means Mali's swipe just isn't going to exist.
Yeah, I mean, it can with the full Omu combo, right? If he gets Omu Germination into whatever.
It can't now, though, right?
Yeah, you go Omu Germination, the first spell burst goes off. You go Mali Moonfire, the second spell burst goes off.
Oh,
You
sure.
have 10 mana again.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
What if?
Yeah, it definitely becomes a lot easier if you hit Omu or Mali for 1 mana. That suddenly makes you do the incredible things. So what, 17 here from Felkeine?
Yep.
I think I quite like just see him at Divine Shield Wind Fury and just smite the 5/3.
In time, you
Or do it this way and get an extra body down? Wait.
Yeah, this is sick. This is sick, right? This
Oh,
is completely
Omu,
sick.
yeah.
Yeah, you literally just get to play your opponent's combo. This is nutty. He just needs to make board space for enough stuff to ruin Thijs' life.
Yeah, he just goes like Innovate, Mali, Moonfire, right?
If he doesn't just
Innovate,
straight up have lethal. Yeah.
Yeah. There was even sillier things where you can go like Innovate, like Omu, Bloom, Mali, Moonfire, all this rubbish, but it's not needed. And honestly, that was the cleanest Mindrender I have seen since Mindrender came out. That was just, I'm stealing your Mindrender, and I am just doing your combo and winning the game. That was pretty impressive from Felkeine there. That was just insane.
Yeah, I completely agree. I, will hold my hands up and say I wasn't even looking at that line at the point
too,
where. At the point there was an Omu in his hand, which it seems mind-numbingly obvious, mind-rendingly obvious that you should be able to put that together once you have an Omu available to you. But, having now seen it once, sure, that one's logged away. But what I will say is that's the kind of performance that Felkeine wanted, needed, and deserved at that point as well. Because, you know, shaky performance in his original game on stream, but, you know, solid performance in the Priest Mirror, didn't really do anything dramatically wrong, kept his composure, was in a good position because he was ahead in fatigue, and I managed to execute. But then to follow that up with a really, really clean game of Priest after that, executing on a pretty complex late game scenario, like that absolutely is what he would have wanted to do to put in a better showing.
And that's one of the hurdles, I guess, or problems with being a pro player, because we know what Felkeine can do, right? We've seen him play enough. We know what he's capable of. We know he's a good Hearthstone player. But the problem is, no one cares if you lose, right? No one cares. No one cares about how good you are if you lose, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it's important, where these players, even though everyone's like, oh, it's okay, you lost a match, you know, we know you're great. Well, that doesn't matter if you don't win games of Hearthstone. So I agree. I think it's important that Felkeine just has a very solid match here based on, you know, I imagine him being frustrated with his previous match of today. So, yeah, he's been definitely shaped up for this series so far.
I think least of all, just to finish off that point, you as a competitor don't care about how good you think you are if you're not winning.
Because honestly, and people might shout at me or whatever, but I've heard a lot of players say, oh, well, I would rather play the best and lose than not play as well and win. I'm like, right, well, do that for a couple of years straight, and then I'll ask you the same question, because I just don't believe you. You know?
Oh, get out! All right, look, forget about this conversation. What is this nonsense?
It's the priest curve, Sottle. We've seen this all day.
Zephyrus on 2 again, Mindrender in the opener again. This time, there's a freaking Raised Dead to go alongside it all as well. What is happening? Priest is just the best ramp class in the game now.
It's ridiculous. And they throw the whole Highlander out the window. They can play 2 Zephyrus in their deck and just win. And then when they're bored, they get to play a different class with Mindrender. Oh, Priest is just every class in the game combined. Confirmed.
It's true, yeah.
It's the Captain Planet of Hearthstone right now.
Yeah. So Felkeine started this game as a priest, role-played as a druid for a bit, and he's going to end the game as a demon hunter.
Saying that, looking at Anduin's portrait, if you made him like blue, just look a bit like Captain Planet, right? He was blue, wasn't he?
Yes.
It's going way back. I was pretty young, but yeah, I think it's not far off. But anyway, Thijs, judging from this opening here from Felkeine, does have a bit of an uphill climb, but he does have 2 marrow slicers, so even them alone are going to stack up to start being a lot of damage. The only thing he's missing right now is some card draw, which it might even push him to use a consume magic a little bit earlier, or maybe even his own stuff, just to cycle it through.
Right. In terms of disruption, though, the Zephyrus is kind of it for Felkeine, which obviously he does have on demand at this point. He can get a Zephyrus back anytime he wants it at the cost of a little bit of health, which is, you know, relevant. But he does not play Cobalt Sticky Finger. He doesn't play Acidic Swampoos in his version of the deck. So in terms of damage disruption coming through the other way, he's a little bit more limited than some of the other builds of Priest that we've seen so far.
And this is where things are going to get just a little bit tricky. I think Felkeine was staring at the coin there, just working out exactly what he wanted to do. If he coined Galakrond and then went for Kronks, although it looks like a good bit of, you know, power play 1-2 punch style, it would leave him a little bit susceptible to just hitting him in the face twice over the course of 2 turns. So I do like that he peeled away a little bit, went for this second Zephyrus to kill off this weapon, and then tries to stick minions on board for an Apotheosis.
Yeah, I do too, but I'm not necessarily sure that Felkeine's achieving too much right now. Like, yeah, he's destroyed a couple of weapons, but it comes at the cost of just leaving this minion damage up in play anyway, which is just, you know, causing repetitive damage regardless of how many weapons he destroys.
I think we could even be close to seeing a coin Mindrender turn to just try and use up a lot of burn in Thijs' hand. That's something that is a little bit scary for the Demon Hunter, because a lot of the damage cards are so cheap.
Yeah, it's a little bit suspect though, just because of some of the really good cards you have in your hand right now, like the Apotheosis and the Kronks, for example, are a lot of healing that you would be throwing away to get rid of burn from your opponent's hand, which I'm not necessarily sure that adds up in the long run.
Yeah, just something to consider. Maybe if it's not now, in the near future. Oh, Thijs banking every point of damage possible. The Apotheosis is in hand for Felkeine. But Thijs also has Consume Magic, so even if he says, okay, Apotheosis, you heal for 5, I can remove that and push more damage over those 2 turns. So, yeah, it does work out.
Yeah, and we had this discussion yesterday, was it? Where you were asking the question about, like, okay, when I play against Priest, I can't remember which way around you said it, whether when you play against Priest you completely ignore Apotheosis, or whether you pay way too much respect to Apotheosis. And you were kind of asking the question about, like, you know, what's the timing? Like, when can you ignore it, when can't you? And it's a simple question, right? It's if Apotheosis happens, can I deal with it, or does the game just end? Do I just straight up lose, right? And I think in this position, Thijs can afford a small Apotheosis there because, as you said, no big deal.
Yeah, whereas, for example, if a Kronks was just sat on board, starting with 6 attack, and then Apotheosis lands, that is a way bigger of an issue to deal with, because it's just more upfront healing.
Yeah.
This might be the moment, actually. Kronks into Wave? And Kronks to just maybe deal 5, heal 5?
Maybe.
And then you're asking Thijs whether he can deal with Kronks and threaten lethal at the same time. If not, and he doesn't have lethal, then that Apotheosis play happens, right?
I might... Depending on how secure Felkeine feels, whether the Wave of Apathy is going to happen or not. There's also potentially looking at just like Mind Flayer coin Kronks, just to have maximum stickiness on board to be able to land an Apotheosis.
Well, that's just game.
That is just game, indeed.
Yep, that was the fear of just going for the 8/8 taunt if Kane comes down, or anything else to get through that. It does leave you a little bit open there. Felkeine took the risk a little bit just to see it not so much really pay off there, but the Consume Magic was from the Vulpera as well. So Felkeine would have known that there was a mystery card in his hand, and he does take the loss. But honestly, the Priest did a great job there, getting 2 wins for Felkeine, and now that means he has his Mage and his Druid left over, which again, Druid, I think really decent matchup, or a really solid matchup against the Demon Hunter. Mage, not so much, but most importantly, Felkeine has 2 goes at this Demon Hunter.
Yes, and I think, you know, Felkeine again might want to exercise a few demons here from the previous series, where he did have the good matchup with the Druid going up against the Demon Hunter, and he was in a rough position no matter what he did. But his missequencing with the Bog Beam led himself into a position where he basically just scooped. He essentially conceded by missing a point of damage on a Gidra, but regardless, he was in a pretty rough position just because Bunny kind of got the nuts that game against him. Was it Bunny Hopper? I forget. Whoever his opponent was, kind of got the nuts that game. But, you know, Felkeine does have this position now where he has a pretty solid matchup overall coming in against the Demon Hunter. And this time, looking at that overgrowth in his opening hand, I think he'll be feeling pretty good about his chances.
Yep. Yeah, looking very solid indeed. Less so with the survival of the fittest, but honestly, just having that overgrowth and overflow, the healing, of course, makes a big difference in this matchup. I do feel like the healing from overflow generally isn't really even thought about that much, because it's often, you know, all about the card draw, right? But in this matchup, 5 extra health will make a difference. Same with the Druid, just the fact that it can gain some armor.
Yeah.
Okay, though, we're going to see the Bloodfen Raptor get played from Thijs. With no answer, it's going to start chipping away some damage, which does help. But really, kind of going back to what I was saying about the Demon Hunter versus Druid matchup earlier today, is that early chip damage is fine, but unless you're maybe even playing the Battle Fiend lists that some people are in the Pantheras for a Zoo-style opening almost, or an Aggro Demon Hunter opening, the chip damage doesn't really add up, because the Druid often just gets to that point of saying, okay, you've put me to 20-ish, Now I've got 2 massive beasts on the board, and I can taunt them. Good luck.
Right.
Whereas I honestly think that Thijs would have to put Felkeine to like low teens, maybe even 10 health, to have like a good, break, just 1-turn swing to win the game.
Oh,
there we go. There we go.
You saw how much that meant to Felkeine. I was about to say, like, it's half a Druid hand right now, but it's not much more than that. He does not want to be overflow passing this turn, which is kind of where he was at that point. But now, straight away, double Teacher's Pet out of the Guardian animals means Thijs is going to be a long way behind the play, I think, for the majority of this game. And on top of that, Thijs has got one of those draws that I was talking about in the previous series where his game hasn't started yet because there's 0 soul fragments in his deck.
And one of the great things here for Felkeine is he has an Ironbark. So if he does top deck just 1 0-mana spell, he can just drop a Survival of the Fittest next turn with that KT.
Yep.
That's just huge because the 2 minions coming off the Guardian Animals were the Teacher's Pet means that it's fairly certain that at least one of these beasts will live. Oh, wow. Better than the Teacher's Pets. Great.
Enough time.
So where do you stand on this Elic, by the way? Because I think this is almost always a colossal low roll for the Druid.
Yes, for Druid specifically. I agree. Do people love this? Do people think this is great?
Well, I think, like, a lot of people think of it as, like, a decent... Because it's got good stats, first and foremost, but I don't think people really appreciate how bad the Death Rattle is for the Druid. Like,
right.
You don't want to be drawing all of your cheap spells again and again and again. You don't want to be drawing garbage spells that your opponent's giving to you. You just want to draw the broken cards that you put in your deck on purpose.
I 100% agree with you for once, Solom, yeah.
Okay.
The card is cool. Do not get me wrong, but you know what's cooler? The biggest board or the biggest Mookla you may have ever seen here is Felkeine not only got the Innovate off the top that I mentioned he could have done with this turn, but also just went for the overflow, not the Survival of the Fittest, and has it pay off regardless.
Whoa. He just overflows again?
And
Hello?
I thought
pays
KT
off.
got nerfed!
It pays off again? Runic freaking carvings, let's go! You have another proc! He had another proc, right? Am I insane?
Did he have it? No, he didn't.
No, he didn't. I am insane. Okay, good.
Yes. Shut up, Subtle. Most importantly here, like, this is why people are still playing KT. KT got factually worse, but these are the turns that go off. Even if he didn't go off twice, or potentially even 3 times, depending, it's still just good enough, right? With the power plays Druid can make.
Yep. Up until now, the biggest Mookla I've ever seen was in the tutorial, but yep, Raven's story checks out. This one's bigger.
Yep. Kane's gone, but this is where we talk about. I feel like Kane is a false positive in this matchup. Like, look at this. You play Kane, so what? Like,
yeah.
It just doesn't matter in all these instances. And like I said, you do not often get Druid down that low. And there's the Elic coming into play with a twin slice here from Felkeine.
It's just lethal. That's so great. After we put some shade on Elic's name, Elic shows us who's boss by handing the lethal over to Felkeine, and Felkeine does exercise the demons from his opening series. He's going to be progressing onto our Deciders match now, with a chance to fully avenge. And you mentioned this straight away, that, like, you know, as disappointed as Felkeine looked with that opening performance, he can still make top 4. He can still make Sunday, right. And that's what the goal of getting here in the first place was. And now Felkeine finds himself one step closer after an absolute crushing Druid victory. A very stereotypical French Druid victory. A Blaise-esque Druid victory, at which there can be no greater compliment than calling a Druid victory Blaise-esque.
Yeah, I know last season APAC maybe held the title of the Druid players, I would say, overall over in the Asia-Pacific region, but we might be taking over here with some of these French guys showing us how it's done. with the big Druid plays. But that's what the group does look like so far today. Bunny Hopper booked his spot through, taking down 2 French players in the form of Felkeine and Blaise. But now those 2 are going to face off for that last spot through for tomorrow. And like we said, this is week 2 of 3 of the Swiss, and the players are scrambling for as many points as possible to get them in that Division A. Division A does not mean you are safe. You can go and ask Hunter Ace that one, but it does mean you are safer. It's true, right? No one's safe.
I mean, you could go ask him, but probably don't. That might be a bit BM, is all I'm saying. Yeah.
But the Division A is a lot more comfortable to play in for these players. I think we've seen a lot of Grandmasters speak about the difference in just attitude and feelings being placed in each group, respectively. So a lot to play for going up on this week and next week. But we are going to go to a quick break while we give Felkeine just a few minutes to prepare for his next opponent, who is going to be Blaise. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with our final match of the day.
Hey guys.